All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of the South Carolina game. There's not much to talk about there, but big news for today, Seth Litrell has been let go by Oklahoma. He's no longer on the staff. John Finley has been promoted to the play caller, and Kevin Johns will be the quarterback coach for what is expected to be the remainder of the season. I doubt another change is made. That would be extremely uncharacteristic, probably, of Brent Venables, given that he already said he's not used to midseason changes, and then just doesn't seem very likely that two staff changes happen during the season. So, before we keep talking about that, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about what Oklahoma's future could look like over the next 5 games. And it's not an easy 5 games, so they've got to get things right fast. All right. Litrell's out. Finley is now the guy that's got the Xbox remote and hoping for coaches' suggestions to come in that are actually going to be effective. Brandon, the moves seem to be probably a little bit delayed, in my opinion. Maybe you would think otherwise, but what is there to really be hopeful for from your perspective for Oklahoma's offense after just a terrible showing in really the first half? It got better in the second half a little bit, but still not great for the offensive side of Oklahoma.
I mean, yeah, it's a different play caller. That's something I think we can all be pretty excited for. For whatever it just didn't work out with Seth Litrell. I think Litrell has been a good coach in the past. He'll probably end up being a good coach in the future. It just didn't work out here. And I think a lot of it does suck because this was a very injury riddled team that I'm sure he wasn't anticipating on inheriting. In the offseason and stuff, but that's just the way it rolled, and he just seemed to really not have any adjustments. We talked about it every single week. Just the injuries suck, but there was just no spark. There was no. He didn't adapt at all to the injuries, and really didn't find any consistent way to move the ball at all. So, I mean, I agree. I think this was the move that they had to make. I actually didn't expect to see it till after the season, but I think this shows that. I mean, they're obviously serious about trying to fix the offense. It's been really bad, so it could only get worse, or it could only get a little bit better. I get the schedule a little tough. Having Jojan as the new play caller is going to be interesting because you got to think he's half responsible for what's been happening with the current offense. So that's an interesting promotion. I think the idea of Kevin Johns as quarterback coach is going to be, kind of fun. I think that should only help out now that they have a guy who's actually played the position and a guy who's coached the position for a long time in college football, kind of helping out with both Hawkins and Arnold now. So, I don't know how much better, if at all, you can get. Just because it's a midseason firing. It's one of the guys who was the co-OC has taken over now. So this is not the end-all solution, I don't think, to Oklahoma's offense. But hopefully, they find a little bit of a spark and can move the ball a little bit going forward.
Yeah, Litrell definitely. This was a move that, again, was probably overdue with how poor the offense looked, especially during the Texas game. I think when you look that bad in that big of a stage, the fact that you got to survive one more week, like Venables really believed in him, and he made no adjustments. There was, like we talked about last time, it seemed like there was a lack of leadership on the offensive side of the ball, mainly from the head coach or from the offensive coordinator spot. On the other side, I think Finley got off pretty easy here. The fact that he hasn't been the main play caller is probably the reason that he's still getting a second, third chance, and however you want to see it. But the fact that he's still on the roster is, or the staff here is crazy because he was supposed to be one of two guys that was supposed to be able to take this leadership role and make this offense good. And he's had that role for just as long as Litrell's had his role, and he got to escape. And he goes from being seemingly number two in charge to the lone offensive coordinator and now play caller. Honestly, this is probably a very temporary fix. If he sticks around for longer than this season, I think that puts Brent Venables in a really bad spot. No matter how the offense looks, like it's got to look like top 5 in the country start of next season if he gets to remain as the offensive coordinator. But it's got to be like we need a spark change, but we don't need to like rock the boat too much. Where we have our quarterbacks that are already struggling have to learn a new terminology with new play calling kind of thing. So I don't expect Finley to be here after this season. Like you said, Coach Kevin Johns being the QB coach, and according to Pete Thamel, very involved in this offense, is going to be probably very good. I would assume that Jackson Arnold is going to keep his quarterback role now as, I guess, QB1 for, I guess we'll see, maybe the remainder of the season. But it's good that they both now, him and Mike, have an actual quarterback coach there with them in the room, especially for film study. Like that's really got to be where these kids got a lot of missed opportunity. I'm sure it's hard to question the fact that these guys do or don't know what they're talking about, just in respect to like football and how to coach an offense, but they just didn't, it seemingly did not know how to coach quarterbacks was the biggest issue here. A lot of misreads. It's like their eyes weren't in the right place. So no matter how well they could have drawn something up, which I don't think they did a very good job of it, but even if they drew up the perfect play, they didn't coach the quarterback to get his eyes in the right spot and make the throw. So luckily for them, Johns is there to help them. His last notable stop was Duke last year as the offensive coordinator with Riley Leonard and Mike Elko. So if you guys remember what Riley Leonard looked like before he started dealing with injuries, he was looking like one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And now he's at Notre Dame. Very different situation, but while he was at Duke, he definitely looked very good. With like how big of a spark this gives, we'll see. I think Johns has to be the guy that kind of takes lead here. Like you can't really hope Finley does anything special. He might be a better play caller, like have more situational awareness. Sometimes it'd be like 3rd and long, and we just resort to a wide receiver screen, which is infuriating. Like or just running it down the middle, that was dumb too. There was no shots taken. So maybe that'll be something that's a little bit different, more situational awareness there from Finley. We'll see how that goes. But I think the spark that needs to be is Johns to just try to get these quarterbacks in a better spot. And honestly, hopefully retain both of them, because even if one enters a transfer portal, this quarterback room is going to be very light. You're going to have, if one left, let's say likely Jackson Arnold, with how this season had been trending pre-South Carolina game, you have Mike Hawkins as the starter with who knows how his confidence would be into the 2025 season. Brandon Zerberg, who would be a redshirt freshman. They're the same. We got 2 recruits in this last class, if any recall. And then Kevin Sperry. You're going to have a lot of inexperience, a lot of new, and it's not going to – it would just be pushing the whole restart button in a bad situation, or what could have been a bad situation. So we'll see what happens. I think at this point it's roster management, keeping all the quarterbacks on roster to stay on the roster, and just have Finley not make it any worse than it already has been.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think Joe John got off the hook for your first point there. Just not being the primary play caller, I think 100% did save him. And I think the fact that he was probably the easiest guy to just slide over and take over the role with 5 games to go. You can't really do a whole offensive coordinator search during the regular season, so it's just you have to do what you have to do for now, and hopefully they have a guy that they like a lot. There are a couple of guys that they like identified, and they can kind of go after them at the end of the season. And I'm sure there is a plan in place for that. As far as the roster goes, I couldn't agree more. That's where it's going to get interesting. These final 5 games and into the offseason immediately is just who stays, who goes. Because I think by the end of the season, I'm with you. I don't think Joe John is the long-term solution. I'd bet he's probably on the way out too, unless he would agree to go back to being a tight end coach or whatever, just to keep his job. I don't know how that would work, but I have a feeling that, they bring in a new OC, whoever that might be, and kind of like you've been talking about or suggesting for a couple weeks now, just let this new guy, whoever it might be, come in and kind of just run the staff how he wants to do it. I'd imagine that is the next approach here at Oklahoma. And what that means for the current roster and then the recruits in the 2025-26 class with Jaden Daniels, stuff like that, is going to be very interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of decommitments. That's just kind of the way college football works. These kids, they don't so much commit to a program. They commit to the coaches that they were, visiting and stuff like that. And I think by the offseason, I think a good majority of our offensive positional coaches could be on the way out. I think Emmett Jones probably is the one who's safest, just because he has 5 dudes out. He looked. I mean, he's playing with a very young crew, a very inexperienced crew. He got I don't even know the guy's name. Is it Jacob Jordan or whatever? Who was looking good on Saturday. So he's trying some stuff out there. I think he's been a good recruiter. But I think the rest of the staff on offense is in trouble. I think by season end, and it's going to be. I'd anticipate a clean haul of just the entire offensive staff. Essentially, the new guy's going to come in, whoever it is, and bring his guys. But with that, sometimes they can bring in some recruits with them and guys that they like, and we just kind of trade whatever. But I think it's going to be interesting for sure going forward, the rest of these final 5 games, and then into the offseason, just to see how. Because I think it's going to be a tough offseason to start, no doubt. Until they get a new OC in and stuff, I think we're going to see a lot of decommitments and stuff, and it's going to hurt at first. It's going to suck before it gets better, but that's kind of the way with most things in life.
Yeah, and we actually got a little bit of a tip this morning from someone that is part of a crew over with the athletics department, and it seemed like there was a little bit of pressure from the top on Brent Venables. I don't know if Brent would have made this change without some sort of pressure from Castiglione or Harris, but this was definitely much needed. Again, like Brent Venables at this point, like he's got to realize you can't just be focusing on the defense. And he said the right things at the press conference after the game. He said he's been part of, position group meetings, offensive meetings, but I don't know how. It doesn't seem like he's been very involved because when you hear him talk about the team in a post-game press conference or in pre-game conferences, there's a lot of criticism on the defense, and I get it. He's a defensive guy. He's gonna see those small nuances where he wants things fixed. So it's going to be a lot more detailed. Like his eye's going to, divert to that and look at the little details that are missed from his guys. But that's not his job anymore. That's why he went out. That's why he got rid of Ted Roof last offseason, went out and identified his guy in Zach Alley, and that's Zach's role. You are now Brent Venables. You get to be the one that points out the details on the defensive side and tell the guys what they're making mistakes on. Brent Venables has to look at this team as a whole. And honestly, yes, the defense has not played a perfect 60 minutes, but those guys are out there for 35 to 40 minutes a game, probably a defense that is getting them. I don't know the stats behind it for sure, but I would venture to guess has the most playing time or right up there with the most playing time when you look at a specific unit with how much they were put out there on the field. Because when they would get stops, the offense would just give it right back, and it just gave the opposing offense time to start wearing our defense down. Like during South Carolina, this defense, I think Brandon will know the score, but they didn't really give up many points. I know the scoreboard doesn't look like it, but the offense helped the South Carolina team blow open a lead there to start the game. So really not Again, defense isn't perfect. They sure can improve, but they are not the problem, and that's what Brent Venables, I think, needed to realize sooner than this week. Was like, dude, just like he did his first season as a head coach here. He acknowledged the problems. He said they're going to get fixed. It seems like this season he didn't really want to criticize Seth Litrell and just straight out say the offense is a huge issue. We need to get that fixed. Something needs to change. And none of that really happened until this week in his press conference. Still critical of the defense to an extent, but on the offense, it was the first time you heard him say some changes need to be made, and they were made. So that, to his credit, he did do something once he vocalized it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a start. It's a step in the right direction. We all knew we had to get rid of of Seth Litrell, but I mean, I just think it shows that the job is now, I think, being taken serious. Realize that the idea of Seth Litrell is not going to work. It hasn't been working, and we've been saying it for a while now. If he doesn't, if he's serious about his job, he has to get rid of those guys at some point, and it happened. And again, I think Seth Litrell was dealt a very short hand this season with all these injuries, and that sucks for anybody. But just the lack of adjustments to the injuries is. I mean, you at this point in the season, we knew what we had or what we will have for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and there has been nothing to show that it was going to be any better or improve until the guys come back or something. But that's just not the reality of the situation for OU football right now. We don't have these receivers. We might not have them the whole season. So you have to work with what you have and still try to put points on the board. And he wasn't doing it. So this is the unfortunate truth for him, but it's a step in the right direction for Oklahoma as a program. We'll see, how it shapes out going forward. Like I said, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, but that's how it is. It's going to be a not very fun season. Hopefully, you find one more conference win and do get to 6-6 at least, and you become a bowl eligible team. But I don't think anybody's super confident in that with the schedule going forward, and it could be a 5-7 type year. And then next season, there's going to be real pressure on everybody. And that's the way it shaped out. I think injuries played a huge part of this, but that's the way it is. But next season, there's going to be a lot of pressure on a lot of people around the Oklahoma football program, and they're going to have to perform. I think everyone's going to be on the hot seat going into next season, it is what it is. We got to be better. And I think this is the first step in showing that, and that you will be better. I mean, the offense scored one touchdown in the last 8 quarters, one touchdown against South Carolina and none against Texas. So that's not going to win you any games anywhere, any place. So you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I think you're right, like the next season with how this season looks like it could end. Now, we could be obviously very wrong. Something might actually change on the offensive side, and they go on to win 7 games and become bowl eligible. I don't think that's good enough for Finley to keep his job, but the outlook would be a little bit different for Brent Venables specifically going into the 2025 season. If they do end up 5-7, then I agree with what Brandon said. He's gonna be on the hot seat, and it's gonna suck for whoever gets the offensive coordinator job. That's something that person's gonna have to take into account when they take that job. Like, this is probably your only shot here at Oklahoma, because if it's a massive underperformance 2 years in a row, then the guy that hired you may no longer be here, and the next guy might not want you here. So there's a lot of what ifs and what may happen down the line. I think the most likely thing is at this point Finley just needs to buckle up. He might be good. This would be, I guess, technically his first time as a play caller. And if you look at his history under who he's gotten to learn from, he was on the staff with Jimbo Fisher at A&M. His offenses weren't amazing, but while at A&M, but he has had good offenses in the past. He's learned under Lane Kiffin. He's learned under Jeff Lebby, Lincoln Riley. So he has a lot of background where people that have been successful on the offensive side, he's worked with. If he can implement any of that, even a small piece of all of those guys, and put it into his play calling and make it easy on his quarterback, then this team has a chance because it truly is. You don't need to go out there and score 30 points. We'd love to see it, but you don't need to with how this defense has been playing. Go out there, get a couple touchdowns on the board. I think that'll get your defense to get back to the level of play they were at the beginning of the season when there was a little bit more fire. They're creating more turnovers. So just once that happens, man, that I think Oklahoma's outlook is going to look much better. Just it's not good right now.
I agree. I think the outlook is going to be fine. I think the defense has the potential to be very good next season, very good the rest of this season. And again, that's not the side of the ball we're really worried about. Yeah, I mean, I agree. If we can get some points going on offense, if we can score 25 points, 24 points on offense, if we go out against Ole Miss and then score 2 or 3 offensive touchdowns, I think that would be wild. But that would be really, really encouraging to see. I think that would bring some life back into everybody, the defense especially. I mean, it's got to be just infuriating being them right now, watching that offense take the field and do nothing every single drive. It's just, I mean, we lose our minds as fans, and I'm sure they don't show it, as much as we do, because those are at the end of the day probably their friends and their team, like they know them personally, so they don't react the way we do. But inside, they've got to be pretty annoyed and frustrated. So yeah, I think showing some life on offense would, I think, definitely rejuvenate the defense a little bit. The defense next year should be fine. I think there's a lot of hope for it. So I think it's as easy as finding the right guy away. It could be all of this could be resolved in the offseason. We could be fine next season.
Yep. All right. Well, that's to that topic. Now we can quickly recap the crappy outing that was South Carolina. Oklahoma got to a quick 21-0 deficit, led off with what we actually talked about in our preview. Go out there and at least on the first throw, take a shot, even if it gets picked. And that's exactly what happened. They took a shot, it got picked, and they were very much in Oklahoma territory. So that was a quick score for South Carolina. And then South Carolina's defense went on to get a scoop and score and a pick six. And that was all in the first quarter. Their offense played very little in the first quarter, and they were up 21-0. Oklahoma's offense, Mike Hawkins was subbed out, replaced with Jackson Arnold, back to the Jackson era for Oklahoma. I would assume for the rest of the season at this point. I think he looked good. Still not perfect, but if you have to pick between him and Mike Hawkins right now in the passing game, he's definitely looked better overall. Does he have his mistakes that he makes? Sure. But you kind of have to, it's a pick your poison situation that we talked about in our last video when we talked about the 2 QB system or a little bit of a quarterback battle. Jackson Arnold makes his mistakes, but he gets it down the field. Mike Hawkins, on the other hand, doesn't really get it on the field, but he adds a lot to your run game because he has, he adds that explosive element to the quarterback run game that Jackson Arnold just doesn't have. Not that he's a bad runner, but Mike Hawkins is a different level, right? So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Oklahoma offense still did not look great. The defense, Brandon, you're going to know this number better than I would, but they didn't actually give up very many points. Do you remember how many points the defense actually gave up?
They gave up 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals in a conversion. But, the first touchdown of the game was, again, that was a short field. We turned the ball over plus territory. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hold a 3. But, then South Carolina really could have had a lot more points if our defense wasn't playing well, because the fake punt gave them the ball well within field goal range. They didn't get a first down or held a 3. And then I think it was it was Barnes. Barnes fumbled at our own 30, and they recovered and, again, didn't get a first down or held a 3. I think, so there's 6 right there, and then 2 defensive touchdowns. So that's 20 points that the defense really didn't give up. Technically they gave up the field goal, but they were in field goal range when they got the ball. And a turnover is obviously the best case there, but without a turnover, that is the next best thing. Is just they're already in field goal range. Just keep them here, and they'll get 3, and that's what they did both times, and it's really not on them. And then they had the short field touchdown drive on the first drive of the game for them. They had one drive in which they didn't score on a short field or anything, where they just drove the ball all the way down the field, and that was right before half to make it 32-3. So I mean, realistically, one touchdown drive is what they gave up. 2 technically, because the first drive of the game, they still gave it a touchdown drive. It sucked that they got the ball in plus territory, but still gave it a touchdown drive. But I mean, 15 points realistically is what they gave up, because 20 of it comes on the offense throwing pick sixes and fumble sixes, and the opposing offense already being set up in field goal range, and they held to 3 both times.
Yeah, so there's really not much to cover there. I think that some of the good stuff, that some things that look good for Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold was probably the spark for the Oklahoma offense. Again, not a great outing for that unit, but he definitely looked better. Especially, he looked better even when you compare him to Jackson Arnold early in the season. He mentioned it his press conference, like he played a little bit more free. It is like I literally have nothing to lose. If I play worse than I did when the season started, I'm gonna get benched again, and I'll probably just transfer. At this point, he only has things to gain.
Yeah, I think Jay definitely threw some really good balls. Some that weren't caught. He was definitely a spark. The deep ball touchdown was really nice. I mean, he was still out there running around for his life for most of the game. He still got sacked multiple times, but he led a couple drives. Obviously, the touchdown drive. We had one drive where definitely were in field goal range to take points, but it didn't make sense there, and we got sacked on 4th down. And that's a play where Kyle Kernard was 1-on-1, which should never happen. With the way our offensive line works is how it's been this season. Probably the biggest play of the game for you at that moment in time. With the chance to score another touchdown and make it a 2-score game. You're their best edge rusher is 1-on-1, and he sacks Arnold, and then it's really history. So yeah, I think Arnold was fine. I think the defense was fine again. There's improvements to be made everywhere, but especially on offense, I think Jacob Jordan is your bright spot of the game. A guy that I mean, I'll admit it, when he first caught his first pass, I just I'm sitting there. We watched the game together. I'm looking at you like, who the hell is that guy? And I don't think you knew either. And he ended up being the bright spot. He easily led the team in receiving yards. I'm trying to pull up his exact yardage right now, but he's a guy that I think 100% earned himself some playing time going forward. The guy that looked like he cared, which I think he cared the most out of everybody that we had out there on offense. So I think he's a guy he's got to go going the rest of the way forward. So I think him
And a guy.
Wells is the only bright spots. Yeah, he had 86 yards. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he had a good outing, especially for someone that didn't even get to play the entire game. I think he really came in the second half, and that's when he got all of that, all those stats. Someone that earned himself less playing time, in my opinion, is J.J. Hester. It looked like he didn't have any confidence in actually catching the ball. Even when he did make the catch, it was like bobbled, but he was able to secure it. There's plenty of drop passes from him. Brendan Thompson, I think the coaches and maybe he himself too, I don't know who would be the one responsible for it, but just they got to accept he is a deep threat, and that is okay. You can get to the NFL by being a very good deep threat. Jalen Hyatt most recently did it. He was a very good deep threat for Tennessee. I think he went like the 2nd or 3rd round to the Giants. Like, just excel at that, because that's the one touchdown Oklahoma got, was get him in the slot, have him run a deep fade, and it worked, because he is too fast to not just have him go deep and either be a distraction or actually get him the ball. But again, we'll see. Hopefully we get Deion Brooks back. I mean, he was dancing in the pregame, so it was kind of weird to not see him. It seemed like he was just fine pregame, but expected to have him at Oxford with how it seems like he's progressed through his injury. There's no real update on Jalil Farouk. Andrew Anthony, still TBD. Nick Anderson, who even knows what that guy's injury is anymore? Just seeming to just whatever it is keeping him out. Obviously, Jaden Gibson will not be coming back this season. Yeah, hopefully there's a little bit more to talk about the game next week. Defensively, they look fine. You got a lot more young faces in there, especially towards the end of the game when it was over. I mean, David Stone got to play quite a bit. Jaden Jackson played a lot more. PJ Adewari got a lot more snaps. I think they still look good. So, Brandon, when you said like this defense is going to be good even into next year, it's going to suck not having Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman out there. But when the young guys came in, they still looked very good. So
Yeah.
as long as that defensive staff remains together, the offense just needs to get fixed.
100%. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think defensively, you have the potential to be just as good, if not better, next year. I think a lot of the young guys are very good. Yeah, losing Setson's going to be it sucks, but and Bowman. I mean, I think those are both great players for us. But you've got Peyton Bowen and Eli Bowen. I think that can slide over there at safety. I think Kendall Dobie's eligible to come back next season. Obviously, Lewis Carter is going to be good. Kip Lewis is already a stud. I think Sammy Omasigo looks pretty good. So I mean, the core is in place for the defense to be good for a long time. So yeah, just fix the offense going forward. Hopefully we see it a little better the rest of the season. I feel like we say it every week. It can't get worse, and you really can't get worse still. They showed a little bit of improvement against South Carolina, but that was, I mean, they could literally only improve against South Carolina based on that Texas performance. So hopefully it gets a little bit better against Ole Miss, and hopefully we steal some of these games, man. Give us some hope going into the offseason. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we're all just kind of ready for the offseason.
Yeah. I think during the game they showed like Oklahoma's winning probability through the rest of the games. Maine was 99%, which if Litrell wasn't let go at that point, I think I would have questioned that 99%, but we'll see. I think there's a good chance we win that game. And then I think the next two likeliest games for us to win were like 37 and 33%, something like that, were at LSU and at Missouri. We'll see. Both of those teams have looked beatable, but it's still going to their place. We'll be at Oxford this weekend. We'll see how that goes. Ole Miss has also looked beatable. Really, the teams that are left on our schedule are better than Oklahoma right now. But like if we would have had the offense that we thought we were going to have, and you would have told us we're going to be facing, pretty sure they're all 2-loss teams as of today, we probably would have been going into these games a lot more confident.
Yeah, 100%. I think Mizzou's the only one that is one loss at this point, or maybe LSU, but yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think they're all beatable, but I think Oklahoma's very beatable. And if they don't show any signs of life on offense, it's going to be what we've been watching for 5 more weeks. But that is the encouraging sign. If it is this bad, for sure they're going to just clean house on offense. So we have that to look forward to. We have the hopes of getting the right guy in and kind of fixing this. And, there's only 5 more weeks of this suffering, and then we get to be optimistic again. So that is the encouraging sign.
Yeah, there's things to look forward to. Right now, hopefully things get turned around. If they don't, it's the off season. It's almost the off season for that to get fixed. So, all right. I think that wraps it up for today's video. A lot of things happening around Oklahoma football. So if you want to stay up to date with all of that, make sure to subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, like today's video, and hit the comment section. Let us know what you think about the outlook for this Oklahoma offense. I feel like that's how I've ended every video for the last 7 weeks because it hasn't looked great. But maybe there's a chance here. Maybe there's a chance. We appreciate you all watching. We'll see you next time.